Hey now everyone, today we are taking a look at Tokaido, designed by Antoine Bauza, published by Funforge, and with art by Nayade. And I'm giving a special shout out to the artist because it's the same artist that did the art for Seasons, which is just a beautiful game. That's my favorite game. So, and Tokaido, the art is beautiful as well. So I just want to give a special shout out there. But what is Tokaido? Basically, it's a worker placement game. Each player takes control of a traveler going down this famous road in feudal Japan called Tokaido, which connected Edo to Kyoto. And it's a competitive game, but the goal is to have the most fulfilling journey possible. So in a way, it's a it's got a very light theme to it. You're not trying to kill anybody, you're not trying to hurt anybody, you're not trying to take over territory, you're just trying to have a pleasant journey. And you're going to stop by hot springs, you're going to paint vistas that you see, you're going to meet interesting travelers, you're going to eat delicious meals, and just try to experience everything that road has to offer. So it's a game that definitely gets by on its charm, but is it good? Is it going to be right for you? Let's go to the overview, then we'll come back. I'll let you know what I think. Tokaido is a game for 2 to 5 players where each player is competing to have the best, most fulfilling journey as they travel along this road that connects Edo to Kyoto. Now, at the start of the game, each player is going to take their player components in whatever color they prefer. You have your little meeple that's going to actually do the traveling along the road, and you're going to randomly distribute them out at the start of the road at the beginning, at the first inn. And then you also have a little tiny aspirin-sized scoring marker, which you're going to keep at the scoring track up here. So you'll do that. Randomly determine the order at the start at the first inn, and then you're going to distribute these character cards. Now I'll get back at the end a little bit about what all these do, but everyone's going to be randomly distributed 2 of these. You'll choose which one you like, and then you're going to take the corresponding color or chip here and put it up at the top just so you can remember which color you actually are during the course of the game. Also, in the top corner of each of the cards, you're going to have the amount of coins that you can start off with at the beginning. Down here is a special ability, which, like I said, we'll get to a little bit later after I explain the other facets of the game. So you'll take your starting coins, which you'll just keep anywhere, and then you'll begin. Now, the way that Tokaido works is whoever is farthest back along the road gets the next move, and that's going to change and fluctuate constantly. Out along the board, along the road, are all these different spots, these little circular spots, which indicates where you can stop as you travel. When you stop at one of those locations, you're going to take the effect of the location, and then you're going to have to wait for the other players to catch up to you. So, at the first inn, blue is the farthest back, so blue is going to choose to move. Now, I can go anywhere I want up to the next inn, which are these red spots here. Anywhere between this inn and that inn, I can choose to put my little worker. So, I'm just going to go ahead and go to the hot spring space. Now, while I'm there, if it's a space that has 2 different options, like there's a farther one out along, it's kind of hard to see, I have to go to the one that's on the road, and if someone else wants to go to that space as well, they go to the one that is farther back. And they're considered to be farther back, which means they get to move before the other person does. Now, once you go there, like I said, you'll take the effect, and then everyone else has the same option. They can't go to the same space as you, but they can go to other spaces along the way. They can go past you as they want. But remember that whoever is farthest back is the person that gets to go. So if after the first move, this is how everyone is, then purple gets to go again because purple is furthest back. But now purple has to wait for gray to go, for blue to go, for yellow to go, for green to go, and then it's back to purple again. Obviously, you couldn't do that because you have to stop at the end, but how that works is that when you get to the inn spot, you are obligated to stop there to stop and have a meal. So you can go all the way up to the spot right before the inn, which happens to be a hot spring in this case, but then your next move has to put you into the inn, and you file in from top to bottom, and the order is very important. But let's go through what some of these different spaces do before we go any further. Now, there's a lot of different spaces, and they're all going to kind of correspond to the different cards that are out here as well. One of the first spaces, and these will all repeat as you go through the different segments of the road, is the souvenir shop. When you stop at the souvenir shop, you're going to draw the top 3 cards off the deck, and then you're going to choose one of these cards to purchase. So you have some different symbols here. You see Kamaboko, Hashi, Sanagosa. Now the artwork in the name is as important as what's down at the bottom of the card. first off, you have the points that the card is actually worth and the cost. So you have to pay the cost in coins for any of these cards. They range from about 1 to 3, I believe. And then depending on how many of different sets of different types that you have, you'll get points. What you're trying to do is make sets. There's 4 different types of souvenirs, and if you can make a set of 1 each of those, then you get a different amount of points. So if this was the first card that you had and this is the start of your set, then you're only going to get 1 point. But if you happen to have one of the fan souvenirs as well, then once you get the fan souvenir, that one will be worth 3 points. So you have a total of 4 points. If you get a third card in the set, that one will be worth 5 points, and if you get a fourth, that'll be worth 7. So you'll just kind of take those, lay them out in front of you, and then you can mark your points right away depending on what you get. And the way this game is designed, that you'll always be able to keep track of how many points you have. If you think you've lost out on points, at the end of the game, you can just keep track and find out how many you have just by looking at the cards that are laid out in front of you. And you can build multiple sets of souvenirs if you want, if you go there, if you have the money and the spaces available to do so. Another type of spot that you can go to is the temple. When you go to a temple space, you're going to take one of the coins that you have and you're going to donate it to the temple in the spot appropriate to your color. But just by doing so, you gain a point. At the end of the game, whoever has the most coins donated is going to get 10 points, the second most coins gets 7 points, and so on. You get a decreasing amount of coins depending on how much you contributed. As long as you contributed at least 1, you're going to get at least 2 points. Another spot are the different panorama spots. And there's 3 different panorama spots. There's a green spot, a gray spot, and a blue spot corresponding to these cards. When you go there for the first time, you're going to take the level 1 card off the top of the stack, which is worth 1 point. You'll immediately score those points. You'll flip it over and put it on the little vista side, and then lay it out in front of you. And what these actually do is create a picture. The next time you go to a green spot, you're allowed to take the number 2 card, which is going to earn you 2 points, and it continues to expand the portrait that you're creating. And the green one has 3 different portraits to collect. The gray one has 4, and I believe the blue one has 5. And once you've completed an entire vista and scored the points, you cannot stop at one of those spots again. You have to go to another spot. So you can't build more than 1 set of the same vista. Another spot you can go to is the farm. The farms are very simple. Just go there, take 3 coins if you need the money. You can go to the traveler spots. Now the traveler spots are going to let you take a card off the top of the traveler's deck. These are just different people that you meet along the way who give you certain effects. So if you take the samurai card, you'll get 3 points. Very simple. If you take the Miko card, you get to take a coin from the bank, not from your own stash, and immediately donate it in the appropriate spot to the temple and gain a point for it. You have the Shokunin, who immediately lets you take the top card off of the souvenir deck and keep it and score the appropriate amount of points, and so on and so forth. Then there's the Hot Springs. If you stop at the Hot Springs, you take the top card off the Hot Springs deck, and it's either going to score you 2 or 3 victory points, depending on which one you're lucky enough to draw. And then we have the inn. The inn is the place where you file into in between each of the different segments of the road. And it's one of the most important spots, not just because you're obligated to stop there, but because when you're there, you have a chance to eat. Now, the first person that gets there and every subsequent person has to wait for everyone else to show up there. Once all the players who are in the game arrive there, starting with the first player, you draw cards from this food deck here. You'll draw a number of cards equal to the number of players plus 1 if you're just playing with the normal game and not with one of the variants. And the first player who draws those cards gets to secretly look at them and choose one of the cards that they want to have for their meal. These all have different names and they all have different costs from 1 to 3, but they're all worth 6 victory points if you're able to pay for it and put it in front of you. There's a couple of different rules about this. First of all, you cannot eat the same meal twice during the course of the game. If you've already eaten miso shiru, then you cannot eat miso shiru again. You can't even buy it, and you definitely wouldn't score points for it. But also, you are not obligated to eat if you don't want to, but you will be losing out at 6 victory points if you don't. Now, the first person who gets there and has the cards to choose from will choose the one that they want to buy, pay for it immediately, and put it face up in front of them. Then the cards go to the next person in the line, and so on. So by the time it gets to the last person, they're only going to have 2 cards to choose from, and they might not be able to eat if they don't have the money, if the card is too expensive, or if they've already eaten the particular types of food that they have in their hands. So that's why it's important to get there first. But after everyone has eaten, then the game progresses, and of course the last person that filed in is farthest away from the road, so at least that person gets to go first with their placement. And that's basically how the game is going to work. You're going to keep going down the road, trying to get victory points the best way you can, whichever way you choose, either by completing panoramas, going souvenir shopping, donating to the temple, meeting new and interesting people, and so on, until you get all the way to the end and have your last meal at the last inn. At that point, there's a couple of extra little scoring things. I already mentioned the temple, where the person who donated the most coins gets the most points at the end. But there's also special achievement cards that you can earn based on what you did during the game. If you're the first person during the course of the game to actually complete one of the vistas, you get to take the appropriate scoring card and gain 3 points. If you have the most souvenirs at the end of the game, you can take that achievement card and get 3 points. If you've met the most travelers, you can get 3 points. If you have spent the most amount of money on meals during the course of the game, you get 3 points. And if you have the most hot springs cards, you'll get an achievement for 3 points as well. Now let's talk about some of the characters and their special abilities, because they can actually alter the rules of the game. Like I said at the beginning of the game, each player gets 2, chooses 1, discards the other. So Sasayoko actually gets to, whenever she goes to the souvenir shop, she gets to get the cheapest souvenir for free instead of paying for it. Every time Chubei eats, he gets to take a traveler card. Every time Hiroshige eats, he or she gets to take a panorama card of their choice. Zenimon will pay 1 less for souvenirs, I believe. Umege, every time that she meets a traveler, she gets a victory point and a coin. Yoshiyasu gets to draw 2 travelers and choose the one he wants. Mitsukuni gets an extra point for hot springs cards and for achievement cards at the end of the game. Hirotada, every time that they donate to the temple, I believe, I think extra points. Actually, don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure. And then every time that Kinko eats, he gets to pay 1 less for his meal. And Satsuki gets to take a random meal for free from the meals that are offered to her. But if she doesn't like that meal or she can't buy that meal, she can choose from the other cards that are available for her and pay for them normally. So other than the one I forgot what they did, those are basically the different characters that you have the option of choosing. And that's the game. Just go along the road, try to have the most fulfilling journey, which in game terms is doing whatever you can to get the most points possible. Whoever has the most points after stopping at the last inn and having a chance at your last meal is the winner. So I mentioned in my intro that this game gets by on its charm quite a bit, and that is true. The presentation of this game is wonderful. The components are all very nice. I don't like the paper coins because they tear a little bit, or the cardboard coins, and I don't like the fiddly little score trackers for each color. But other than that, I mean, the game is just beautiful to look at. The board, the artwork from Nayade, like I mentioned, just all really, really great. And it's really important that that's the case because I can kind of see Tokaido as a gateway game. It's very accessible. It's very simple to learn. This is a game that you would want to introduce people who are new to the hobby. If you have family members who probably are never going to get into modern board games that much, but you still want a game that you can bust out and play with them that's maybe a little bit meatier than like a party game or something like that, this is a very good game to consider. But at the same time, there's enough meat here that it can keep more experienced gamers involved. It's essentially a worker placement game. It's not really like worker placement games in a more traditional sense like Kalis or even like Lords of Waterdeep, wherein you just sort of put a worker out somewhere on this board and get some particular action, and really the only interaction is keeping people off that one space. It's the same sort of thing here. If you take a space, someone can't get to it, but that road mechanic is what really sets it apart. And other games have introduced this before and since, but in this game, it really fits thematically. You're going down this road, and you're trying to have the best journey possible, so you're not going to go back. You're trying to get to the end of the road, so you can shoot ahead as far as you want, but you can't go back, and that's where some important decision-making has to be made. You can guarantee that you get something, essentially, by saying, okay, I really want to complete this blue vista, and there's only so many more chances that I have, so I better take the next one before someone else beats me to it. But by doing so, by going too far ahead, you're guaranteeing that the people behind you are going to have more and more spots available and take more actions before you, while you're just kind of sitting there waiting. And that is kind of where the stress and the tension comes in this game. This game can be surprisingly mean without people really intending to, because blocking off a space is just pivotal. It can just change the entire game and can make things very tough on people who are seeing their options sort of narrowed down. Because really that's another benefit of this game, is that you have a wide variety of options. You can go for doing the whole shop thing and collecting sets of souvenirs. You can go for doing the vistas and just having the blue, the green, the pink vistas and completing those and getting points that way. You can go for the travelers and getting more and more travelers, but you have to do your best to sort of specialize in something in order to get an escalating amount of points. And if you see people taking those spots away from you and blocking off your options, that can be kind of tense. And it's something that, even though this game can be very breezy, and it certainly looks that way, there is this hidden tension there that some people are sort of annoyed by. I definitely played with people who found that to be a huge criticism of the game, that it can, just that stress level. But I don't personally see that any different than other worker placement games. In other worker placement games, you can easily get blocked off from the spot that you really need, or watch someone that you're watching the board, waiting for your turn to come around and grab that spot, and someone just takes it from you. It's really no different here. But I think it's the presentation that helps sell it above and beyond that and make it more accessible to people if you can deal with that little bit of tension. There's a couple other faults that I have with the game as well. I think that some of the character roles, I'm really happy that there are different character roles so that everyone can feel like they're doing something unique, but some of them I think are clearly better than others. I think that the person who can grab extra travelers, the person who can buy things at a cheaper rate, I'm just trying to remember some of the different abilities, are definitely better than some of the other ones. And because of that, and because of other factors, because someone can get to the spots they need in a quick way, and other people might make some poor decisions, it can be easy to snowball in this game. In other words, to have sort of a runaway leader problem. Someone gets a lot of points and is able to do everything that they need to do, and they just sort of have a gap that can become insurmountable at a certain point. But the thing is, all that being said, the game is fast, and so therefore it sort of mitigates those kind of problems. Even if you're having a bad time, even if you just had a particular bad game, I would say that even for new gamers, you're looking at 60 to 90 minutes, and that's at the far, far reaches. I mean, if you have a full complement of players and you're all learning it for the first time, it might take an hour and a half, but typical games, you're looking at 45 to 60 minutes, and that's great. It doesn't overstay its welcome in that regard. Like I said, the components are great, the artwork is wonderful, the rule book is very well laid out because it's a simple game. You'll learn this very, very quickly. There's not too much to it. It can be a little bit fiddly with all the different cards you need to keep track of. Scoring can be a little annoying. You want to try to score as you go, but inevitably people end up recounting their points at the end just to make sure, because if you don't have a runaway leader, then the points for all the rest of the people can be very close. But it's a good game overall. Like I said, I think this is a game that can be used as an introductory game. I think that it's beautiful. I think that it has enough meat there for the tension. People whose idea of a good worker placement game is something really heavy, like Kalis, are probably not going to like this game that much. But for everyone else that just wants a casual experience, I think this is a great start. I think that Antoine Baza is an expert in making games that are nice to look at, accessible to everyone, gamers of all types, but with enough meat there for good, heavy strategy if you're really into that. So, Tokaido, I recommend it. My name is Nick, this has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.